Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I'm your host, Jeff Howard, and I am honored to have Justin Sirkin with me. Hey, Justin.
Hey, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. This is, I normally don't note people's voices, but we both got deep voices, so this is going to be a sexy, deep voice podcast, I think.
Yes, we're very deep today. We're going to get deep, too.
A lot of testosterone in this little room.
Seriously.
But for real. So anyway, Justin is here because last November, maybe December, because actually it's funny, I always call Sherman Oaks Film Festival a November festival, but that was the first year that we had it the week after Thanksgiving instead of the week before, and I loved it that way. I think we got more people showing up because no one goes out of town the week after. So anyway, your screening was probably in December, I bet.
Yeah.
It might have been the first or second.
You know, actually, I think it might have been November 29th.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, was it opening night?
I think it was opening night, yeah.
Then you were right at the end of November.
Yeah.
All right, well, I just wasted time of your podcast interview talking about when the film showed. But anyway, you brought your film Reseda, your short film Reseda, to the Sherman Oaks Film Festival. We did your LA premiere, kicked ass, had a great time.
Yep.
I'm a big fan of the film, as you know.
Thank you.
I just find it funny, and I love the style. So we'll be talking about that when we get to it. And I assume, because we're doing this a little early, it's not online or anything yet, right?
No, it's still on the festival circuit as of right now.
Exactly. So no pressure. Whenever it is on the festival circuit, feel free to let me know. We'll put a link where people can see it.
Absolutely.
And I'll be hitting you up with avenues because I think there's a good avenue or two for it.
Certainly.
But anyhow, all right. So then we don't have to tell people where to go watch it. It's up to you what kind of spoilers we share.
Yeah.
Needless to say, generally people, I don't worry about spoilers personally.
Me either. I mean, in this day and age, how can you really escape it?
And you practically have a spoiler on your poster.
Practically. It says practically.
Which, by the way, it's funny when we get to the part of your life that involves Reseda. Like, I'm even going to joke about that. I think I said things in the Q&A based upon that tagline you have in the poster that I might even disagree with. I'm not even sure. I think what your lead guy Sil is.
Yeah.
I actually don't think he's dumb now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you think he's smart?
I think he might be the victim of a crime more than anything else.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Like, he could be so dumb that he lost something important. But the more I thought about it after that Q&A, when I talked about, I think I called him a buffoon or something.
You did. You called him a buffoon.
Buffoon, like the classic buffoon character. I don't see him that way anymore.
Interesting.
I don't. I see him as like a counterpuncher,
I watch a lot of Curb Your Enthusiasm. I love Larry David. He's my favorite comedian. And Sil was very inspired by Larry. And I wanted to kind of create like a Larry if he was like a drug dealer in like a Tarantino movie. That was kind of an idea. But they always say Larry's a victim of circumstance, and I think that's the same for Sil. He's a victim of circumstance.
Exactly, and not necessarily dumb, just kind of like trying to get through with the circumstance he's in. But anyhow, So that's Reseda. But before we get to Reseda, I already warned you, podcast is all about creative people, right? And the filmmakers, because at the festival, we get to talk good 10, 15 minutes about your film. But there's more to it than that, and there's more to you than that. So I already warned you. The first question is, what got you into filmmaking? What was your early inspirations?
Yeah, so when I was about 4 years old, I remember seeing Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. I think I saw it on a DVD. I was 4 or 5, and the movie came out in 2005, but I kind of have a vague memory of it. But I remember seeing it. I specifically remember seeing the last about hour of the film when Anakin and Obi-Wan have their battle on that lava planet. And that just totally mesmerized me. I mean, I was absolutely hooked from there on in. And I just remember feeling like I want to make this, whatever it is. I didn't even know what a director was. I didn't know how a movie was made. I was only a kid. I was only like 4 or 5. But I just remember having this feeling of like, whatever this is that I'm watching, I want to do it. I want to make it.
Right, and you were hooked by cinema itself, and especially that scene, right? Like universe building, like world building, like it was a different world.
Big thing for me was world building.
I'm sure you hear this when you if you've told other people that inspiration, but I think it's cool because obviously, what do you know? I'm probably whatever years older than you, so. When my generation saw Star Wars, and it was just a movie called Star Wars, there was no hope in that title. It inspired an entire generation, and then we all shat on those prequels. Yeah. But the point is, the prequels were inspiring to someone that this universe was new to.
Yes, and what's funny about that is a lot of people at my age grew up with the prequels and like them maybe even as much as the original ones. Like I love episodes 1, 2, and 3. 3 is my favorite, and I can see the flaws in all 3 of them. But I love episodes 1 and 2 also. Like I just love the world building. I think it added a lot to the saga, and I think George Lucas just expanded the world so much and the characters and the lore. And I think a lot of people forget how much the prequels actually contributed to the overall franchise. People like to look back on the originals and say those were better, and they are better. I agree. But I think episode 3 is pretty spectacular of a movie.
I've heard that. I mean, I'm open-minded. Honestly, what you're kind of making me aware of, too, is like most things, it's also just how you're first introduced, right?
Yeah, and that's very true.
And the real problem that uptight assholes like me have, by the way, there is an explicit warning with the Discovery Indie Film podcast, so you can curse if you want.
Oh, cool.
I'll probably curse more.
I love cursing.
I'll curse more than you no matter what. But the the reason why we shit on the prequels so much is story inconsistency, right? Because we grew up with the first 3 and they sort of created something, and then it felt like the prequels did some rewriting that conflicted, and so it pissed us off that like you can't say it. But if you see the prequels first, those are the rules of the universe.
Well, it's funny, I didn't see the prequels first. I actually saw the originals before I saw the prequels as a kid, and I saw 4, 5, and 6, and then I saw 3, and 3 gave me a ton of context. So, and then I saw 1 and 2 after that. So I was still, I still loved Star Wars even with the originals, and that was very important to my dad. It was very important to my dad that I was like, because my dad's like your generation, I think.
I would assume, yeah.
Yeah, he was very, it was very important to him that I saw the originals before I saw the prequels.
I did the same thing with my stepdaughter when one of the prequels. Oh no! Well, go on. Not about me.
Well, I was just gonna say. I wonder if the new generation of kids who grew up with the sequels will feel the same way that my generation feels about the prequels. I'm very interested to see if they love those movies, like if they love The Last Jedi or like The Rise of Skywalker as much as I love Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, I don't know, but I can tell you one thing, that when my stepdaughter was 8, The Force Awakens was coming.
Yeah.
So I said, whoa, we're going to watch all 3 the original trilogy. Mm-hmm. Then we're going to watch the prequels. Then we're going to go see Force Awakens. And in her context, BB-8's the coolest droid that ever lived. Uh-huh. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's great. That's really awesome.
Like,
to hear, actually.
Like, you know, and I consider that character great. Mm-hmm. But like, no one in my generation actually would prefer that droid to R2-D2, right? But for her, she's like, he's way cooler.
Wow, that's really interesting. That's kind of how I feel a little bit about some of the prequel characters. Like General Grievous to me is like the coolest, badass like droid army leader like of all time I've ever seen.
See?
Yeah, and I think he's kind of cooler than like Boba Fett. I like Boba Fett a lot, but I think he's cooler.
Yeah. Well, we're in dangerous territory because we could probably talk about Star Wars for a couple hours.
For a while, yeah.
But I'll piss off friends. But Boba Fett, is not cool for what he did on screen. He's cool for what he represented as a toy afterward. Like,
yes,
he ended up being the coolest action
figure.
Yeah, and the one with the dot on his hand that was like, oh, if you found it, you made $10,000. Like, but if you actually watch the movies, it really isn't much to him.
No.
But outside the films, he's just become like, you know, and then of course, then you get a TV series about, you know, Mandalorian, and all of a sudden it's like these bounty hunters, and forget it, they're the coolest. Mm-hmm. Such a good show. Okay, so anyhow, you saw, so even though you'd already seen the original trilogy, it was
Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, Revenge of the Sith. That like, and so you went home and you were like, what happened next? Did you try to figure out how movies are made? Did you read some books? Did you, like, I guess at your age, did you search the web about how?
You know, I wasn't on the web until I was about like 6 or 7. I think that was the first time I was on YouTube, and I would look up the scenes from Star Wars to watch again, because I don't think I had the DVD for a while. I honestly don't remember how I saw Revenge of the Sith. I either saw it on a DVD or I saw it in the theater, and I feel like I would remember if I saw it in the theater, but I didn't. So
you could ask your dad. He could probably tell you if he took you.
I've asked him, and he thinks he may have. He doesn't remember, and I'm like, oh, why don't you remember? You would be the person who remembers this, but he doesn't. So, but I just watched more movies after Revenge of the Sith. My dad really showed me a lot of movies up until, well, I mean, we still watch movies together, but he showed me some classics like 2001: A Space Odyssey. He showed me when I was about 10 years old, and he thinks that movie did more than Revenge of the Sith did for me. But I always say 2001 was the movie that really showed me what cinema could really do, just go beyond the screen. So that was a really important movie to me also growing up.
Well, and you're sharing that your dad is clearly a cinephile.
I would describe him as a cinephile. He's a huge Hitchcock fan. He loves Hitchcock.
That's a cinephile.
That's his favorite director.
If you're going to Kubrick and Hitchcock, then you are into the real deal. He wasn't telling you, "Oh, sit down. I want to show you Dirty Dancing."
No.
Apologies to everyone who loves that film, but yeah. So you grew up with a cinephile dad. So when did you first get to play with a camera, or did you start writing first or something?
Yeah. Well, when I remember being 7 or 8, and I would draw little like comics and pictures and stuff. I was a pretty imaginative kid, and I had all my action figures, and I had all my like plush animals, and I would try to like create like a lore with them. Like I would, you know, when you're a kid, you play with them and you take different ones, and you know, you create kind of like a narrative. So, and I would draw little like comic strips or pictures and even fake movie posters with my little action figures. And so that was kind of like a start where I was trying to visualize something like a story. I didn't really pick up a camera until I feel like I was about 11, and my mom got us a camcorder, and I didn't really I didn't really use it as much as I thought I would. I was really also, when I was 12 and I was in middle school, I would write a lot of short stories. So I'd say it really started as I wanted to tell a story, and I wanted to write that down first and then visualize it maybe on paper. And then when I got to high school, that was really when I decided like this is time for me to take this seriously and write and direct, and I just got so involved in film in high school. Right.
So high school, just after puberty. So I mean, you were storytelling on paper, and then when you hit a certain age, you obviously, right, our minds expand. I mean, there's nothing better than being a teenager, if you ask me. Like the stuff that goes on in your mind, and just like the creativity and the thinking, and
a lot of insecurity though.
Insecurity, sure.
Yeah.
But also just like the world's your oyster in a way. So that's when you started thinking, all right, so you and you knew that camera was there?
Yeah, the camera was there, but when I went to school at Calabasas High School, and they had a film program that went for 4 years. So I did that, and they had great equipment. So I had better.
I can imagine
access.
how many people would be like, "How LA is that?"
Yeah, it's pretty LA. Yeah, but when I was in middle school, I also was considering doing acting, but I have a notebook from when I was about 12, and in the notebook I wrote that I wanted to be a director. So I've known at least when I was 12 years old that I wanted to make films. So when I got to high school, I was already in that mode of like, let's go, let's do it.
Cool.
Yeah.
So did you take a short story you'd already written and start changing it to screenplay, or did you start writing screenplays originally?
I started writing screenplays when I was about 14, like when I actually typed it out into a screenplay format. And
Did you look that up? Did you go get the style guides, or
there was a free program on. I think I started actually writing it on Google Docs.
Right, there was that thing, Scriptor or something. What was it?
I don't know. There was one that was called Celtex that's still around, and I used that for years. That was like what I really learned the screenplay format on. And I tried to, at a certain point when I was 16, I tried to write exactly like Tarantino, because he was like my favorite director, and I would try really, really hard and fail to write like him. But sometimes I would get a little close. Like I would write a line and I would read it to myself, or I'd read it out loud, and I would think, this is something maybe Sam Jackson would say. Maybe. But there was something about it that it wasn't quite, and it was never going to be, exactly that. But at some point I realized, if I'm truly influenced by Quentin Tarantino, then I'll write normally. I'll write naturally the way I normally write. And you'll be able to see some of the influence if you're really looking for it. So, but as a teenager, I was insecure. I wasn't confident as a writer yet. So I was just trying to copy my favorite filmmakers.
For sure. And so Quentin Tarantino, you're 14. Mm-hmm. When did you first start seeing his stuff?
That's a great question. And I have a crazy answer to that. So when I was 8 years old, my parents took us on a trip somewhere. I think it was somewhere in Northern California, and we stayed at a hotel, a really nice hotel. And in the hotel room there was a television, and I saw a trailer for a film called Inglourious Bastards, and I thought it looked super bloody, and I was 8 years old, and I wasn't really watching violent movies yet. But I saw this trailer, and it was super bloody, and it looked like it was this really gritty war film. And that, I just remember, like, the image, like, stuck in my head. And I did also see that clip. I remember seeing the clip where Hitler is like, 9999. And I knew who Hitler was, because my dad is also a huge history guy. And he taught me who Hitler was when I was a kid. But that was the first time I remember being exposed to Quentin Tarantino. But here's the crazy part. My parents later on told me that room that we stayed in was his room at the hotel. Like that was his room that he would go to
when he would visit the Bay Area. He'd stay there.
Yeah, I think it was the Bay Area. It might have been Santa Barbara. It might have been. I have to confirm that. With my parents,
but
it was his hotel room. Yeah.
Interesting. And so when did you finally, what was the first, because, Tarantino ranges from, there's a lot of range. I mean, a lot of people would argue this with me, but there is a lot of range there.
I think so. A ton of range. I mean, he does different genres all the time.
It's not always bloody and cursing, but sometimes it is.
Jackie Brown is I don't think it's a very violent movie.
So which one came first, and did your dad show you one?
No. So fast forward a couple of years, 4 years later, and Django Unchained is coming out in 2012, and I saw a trailer for that, and I thought that looked like the coolest fucking movie, like, of all time. It was the coolest thing I'd ever seen, that trailer at that time. But I didn't see that movie yet. My dad was like, no, you're not seeing this. This is too much for you. And then I heard about Pulp Fiction maybe like a couple months after that, because I had a friend in middle school who his older brother was super into movies, and he had a whole DVD, he had a huge like Blu-ray collection, and we would just raid his Blu-ray collection and watch movies. But that year I saw Pulp Fiction. That was the first one I ever saw.
Oh, you started with Pulp Fiction?
I started with Pulp Fiction, yeah. And that's...
Frickin' anal rape?
Yeah, no. And that was... What's so funny is that I asked my dad, I was like, can I see Pulp Fiction? And he's like, no, you're not seeing that. And I watched it anyway. And he was specifically worried about the GIMP scene. He didn't want me to see that. And I saw it anyway.
Yeah.
But that's my all-time favorite movie.
I feel you.
Yeah.
I feel you. That is, it's a, I'm not afraid to call that a masterpiece. It's
I think
so
it's
much
the greatest.
originality, such storytelling.
I think it's like the greatest crime movie of all time, in my opinion. I mean, there's some other.
It's great. I mean, obviously,
crime movies.
He's a little older than me, but like, obviously, I saw each film as they came out. So, like, the idea of watching his filmography, after the fact as a young person. By the way, I'll just let you know, like, I'm really close with a lot of my nephews and nieces, and like, I always waited like somewhere around 14. I'd be like, okay, now I can show you Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, and Fight Club. Like we always watch movies together a lot because kids love movies. Yeah. But like, I was always like, you're going to hit an age where I can finally stop holding back.
My dad was thinking the same thing, except I just went against whatever he said and I watched it anyway. Another movie that was A Clockwork Orange. I really wanted to see that film because I saw 2001. He showed me that, and I was like, I want to know more about Kubrick. And I saw the trailer for A Clockwork Orange online, and I really wanted to see that. And I asked my dad, and he said no. And I watched it anyway.
Where did that come from, by the way? Did you get that from your dad or just on your own, the idea? I remember, I don't know when, but there's a transition, I think, for everyone where they realize, oh, it's that director name. Because like, we get into actors, and I want to see all the films with said actor.
Right, that's true.
But then you realize, wait, if I want quality, I should look at the name of directed by and then watch all their stuff.
That's interesting you asked that. Steven Spielberg was like the first director. I knew his name. He's a household name. So I would just seek out his movies, specifically his movies. And then I saw 2001 and I heard about this Kubrick guy, and I think that was the movie that really made me think, oh, okay, this is a director's voice is here. Let me check out his other stuff, and if he can he deliver the same amount of quality as 2001? And surely enough, he does.
Quite a few times.
He's one of my favorites too.
Not always, but the hits are better than the misses. That's for sure. There's more hits than misses.
His misses even are like some pretty great stuff in there too, I think.
For sure. And that gets you into the golden age of Hollywood if you start watching, Spartacus and Dr. Strangelove.
It's actually, Spartacus is the only one I haven't seen of his.
Oh, shit.
I've seen all of his other ones.
It fucking holds up. It just holds up.
Yeah.
Gladiator's just a sad excuse for Spartacus. Sorry, Mr. Scott. But anyway.
It's funny, I actually rewatched Alien last night. I love Alien. That's one of my favorite movies.
Ridley Scott's a genius. I ain't throwing anything at him. It's just...
Nah, he's great.
All right, so you got into the Kubrick. Well, so you got into Tarantino post-Kubrick, obviously. You were into Kubrick first, you said.
Yes, I was into Kubrick first.
And then Tarantino became your guy in high school?
Yeah.
You dove into that?
He was my guy, yeah.
And there was a lot to see at that point.
Yeah, no, certainly. I mean, Hateful Eight came out when I was a freshman in high school. And it's funny, I didn't see Hateful Eight at the time it came out, and I kind of regret not seeing it at the time. But when it was coming out was when The Force Awakens came out. It was literally like the same month. And I was so hyped for The Force Awakens. It was like, nothing else can get in the way of me seeing The Force Awakens. I'm going to see The Force Awakens. So I didn't really see The Hateful Eight until the next year. But there was quite a bit of Tarantino films that had come out. I have a crazy story later about when I saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Yeah, I have a crazy story about that.
Cool. Well, so that was inspiring, and then it got into your writing, you said.
Yes, it did. So I was just trying to like copy him and trying to write like him. And I really loved the idea of just doing different genres. I love that he can do a Western, he can do a crime movie, he can do a war movie. And then there's also a ton of humor. You know, they almost play like comedies, even though they're not comedies.
They're always humor.
Yeah.
I recall an interview with him. This might be inaccurate, but I can recall an interview with him where he was like, if I walked into a video store and they had Pulp Fiction in the comedy section, I'd walk up and hug them.
It's funny, he actually said that about Reservoir Dogs.
Oh, Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah, he did. But I would agree. I mean, Pulp Fiction is like almost a black comedy. I mean, even the stuff that's like not even supposed to be funny is funny. Or maybe not even supposed to be, but it's dramatic, but then if you really think about it, it's pretty funny. It's
a funny distinction, right? Because people like to categorize things by genre, but really comedy means funny, entertaining. But you know, if a dark film is really entertaining, it's kind of funny. And I mean,
certainly.
You know, look, the one the other guy wrote, but the Christopher Walken watch scene is one of the funniest monologues ever given. And it's deadpan and it's serious. And if you don't think that's brilliant comedy, you're an idiot. I was very judgy, but yeah.
Yeah, I love that whole scene.
So funny.
And especially like he has this whole dramatic monologue about, you know, your dad was shot off of in Hanoi. Like, I'm like, you know, this is a very important watch. And this is your birthright. And then after he says all that shit, he says, well, he needed a place to hide it because they were going to take it from him. And one place he knew was his ass. And right then it's like hilarious. It's like you start dying laughing. But everything before that is like he's taking it totally seriously and sincerely. And
kudos to everyone involved. It continues to be serious and sincere. And it's obviously funnier because Christopher Walken never, ever. I can hear you. So I had to take this large, uncomfortable watch.
Yeah.
And put it in my ass. and it's not done for laugh, but it's so funny. Yeah. So I agreed. There's humor in all of it.
2 asses. It was in 2.
And then it's being handed to him. and he's told, you know, this is in your dead dad's ass and then my ass. Now you should hold on to it. It's your birthright. And he does hold on to it.
And he holds on to it.
And it's why he has to go back in that apartment.
And it's that's literally the name of the chapter is the gold watch. That's the entire story of his has to do with this watch that was up 2 guys' ass. 2 asses.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah, I mean, well, we could talk about that. I love that you're into cool shit. So
thank you.
So in high school when you started shooting stuff, fun? Was it what were you shooting?
Well, so in high school I really wanted to cut my teeth on short films, and whenever I went in that program at Calabasas High School, they would have assignments. So, you know, here's a narrative assignment, here's a non-narrative assignment, here's just an exercise assignment. I feel like every film school has those assignments. And, you know, you do one and you're learning, but you're not really doing the film for yourself. You're doing it for a grade. So I felt differently about the stuff that I was doing for school than I was doing for myself. And at some point I think at like age 15, I really wanted to just do a film for myself and take it seriously and use the school's equipment. So that's what I did. And I was thinking, what's the best short films that I've seen? And the best short films I had seen at the time were Pixar short films. So I decided to write one that I could do in live action. And so I wrote this very short film about this kid who has a lemonade stand. And he is just trying to make some money so he can buy a bike. but his lemonade is terrible, and people, he's not getting any customers because of that. And then this man comes along, and this businessman, and he feels bad for the kid, and he tastes his lemonade, and he gives him some sugar, and he puts the sugar in, and it mixes, and sooner or later, people start coming and drinking his lemonade and giving him money, and he eventually buys the bike. And that was my first short film, really, that I took seriously, and I was outside of school that I did that. I just used the school's equipment. I just asked my teacher, like, can I borrow this for like a weekend? I want to make this film. And he was like, absolutely, go and do it.
Right, because the family camera was not nearly as good.
It was not nearly as good. I just had better access. I had access to something better, so I just wanted to use that more.
Yeah, and you cut it and all that?
I cut it myself. My mom got me Final Cut Pro for my birthday that year. And I edited. That was the first time I ever edited really anything. Was that film?
Right, because you could have started with iMovie, but
actually that's not true. I did start with iMovie because when I was a little younger, I would always shoot my parents on their vacations. Whenever we would go on vacation, I would use iMovie to cut something together with that. So I actually did learn to make a cut and transitions and add music on iMovie, but I feel like I really learned how to pace a movie with Final Cut Pro.
For sure.
Yeah.
And it's a great program.
Yeah, I love it a lot.
Yeah. So then that short film, you show it to that teacher?
I did, and he loved it, and he was like, we should show this in class to everybody. And I was nervous. I was really nervous. I was like, all my classmates are going to see this film. But we showed it, and everybody really liked it, and it was a great moment for me. It was the first time I'd ever shown a movie of mine to like more than like 10 people.
Right, not just your friends or
not just my friends.
Oh, by the way, I missed a chance to ask. Mm-hmm. So, your dad is a cinema enthusiast. Mm-hmm. When did you first show him something you did, and like what was his reaction?
So it was those family videos that I would cut together, and I would put music to them, and he really was really supportive of it, because he also saw when I was on these family trips, I would try to kind of create a story with the editing, and he really loved it. He thinks of that as like this is such a like special like memory that I have with my son. And I feel the same way. And then he actually is an actor in the short film that I showed to my class. He plays the businessman who gives the kid sugar to put in his lemonade. So,
and I'm just going to ask you. This is a leading question. I'm just. Let's talk about your mom. How cool is she? Because we're talking about how cool your dad is. I don't want to leave mom out. I'm sure mom counts too.
Mom is a huge part. My mom is very supportive of anything I do in film. She is. Both my parents are lawyers. They're both attorneys, and so I wasn't like raised in a house where we're an entertainment family, and I've known a lot of people who I've had friends who've grown up in entertainment households, but that wasn't me. So my mom is a lawyer. Both my parents are lawyers, but my mom is also from Iran, so she's not really like in Iran. There's not really like a culture of film as much. I mean, there is, but it's not like Hollywood. It's not like living in LA. And so I guess to my mom, being a filmmaker was kind of more of a far-fetched thing. But she was always very supportive of it, and she just wanted me to be happy, and she could see that made me happy. And to this day, she's always like my biggest supporter. After the Sherman Oaks Film Festival, she just told me how much like it was so great to see my film at a film festival on like a big screen. So mom is a very important person in my filmmaking career for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
They were at the screening?
Both of them, yeah.
I wish I could have met them. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Hey.
And my grandparents were there too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. We had some other families there. It's always cool when families out. Mm-hmm. So excellent, good. I'm glad I thought to
glad
prompt you to mention, because obviously it's a 2-person team.
Yes, it is.
Parenting,
absolutely.
Parenting as a team is really helpful.
They've been the best parents too. They've really been so supportive of me, and I don't think I would be where I am at all without them. They are the reason I'm where I'm at right now, for sure.
I figure I got to wait another 10, 15 years to hear that. But anyhow. But so after high school, were you dead set on going to a undergraduate film program?
Yeah. So,
not after, but during high school, did you make up your mind?
During high school, I actually remember specifically at the beginning of high school, I was like, I want to go to USC. Like my freshman year. 8th grade going into my freshman year, I was like, I'm going to go to USC. Because
of Spielberg?
Spielberg didn't actually go, but because of Lucas.
Right, I was going to say Spielberg and Lucas, but there's buildings named after them there.
There are, yeah. Which is ironic to me because Spielberg got rejected from USC.
Yeah. Didn't go to college at all, right? Just started working on the lots.
He actually did go to
Long Beach.
He went to Cal State Long Beach, and he was there, I don't know how long, not very long.
Yeah.
But then he started working at Universal. But during high school, so that short film that I did was called When Life Gives You Lemons. And I submitted that. There was somebody, one of my grandmother's neighbors saw the film and said, oh, Justin should submit this to the California State Summer School for the Arts, which is held at Cal Arts. And my school, also my teacher, I asked him about it, and he was like, yeah, this is a fantastic program. We had one of my students last year went, and he loved it. He thought it was fantastic. So you should really do this. You should really submit to it. And it was kind of perfect because my film was supposed to be like a live action Pixar film or a short film. And that's where Pixar even originated. It was at Cal Arts.
That's where Lasseter went, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I submitted it and I got in, and then I went to Cal Arts for that whole summer in 2017. I was 16 years old, and I learned so much more about filmmaking there. So much more. I met a lot of great people, and I had a controversy there also. This is one of my favorite stories to tell because it really was an important moment for me just as a filmmaker and as an artist. When I was there, I made a film. I tried to make a noir film while I was there, like a black and white, kind of dark noir film. And I had a shot where I was revealing the femme fatale character, and I started the shot from her feet, and I went up her legs to her face to reveal her. And I showed that to the class at Cal Arts, which, by the way, they're a very liberal school. But I showed that to them, and they were gobsmacked at me. They thought that was so wrong of me to do. They were like, you can't, you're objectifying women, you're doing this, you're doing that, this is all wrong, you can't do that. And to me, I was like, I was gobsmacked. I was like, what the fuck?
Well, for better or worse, you could also name 17,000 films with that shot.
Exactly. That's I was like, what?
So they were in the world of we've got to change the way film works.
Yes. And I think that's a good thing in moderation. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but I felt at the time it was very limiting. At the time I was like, this is a noir film. This is like how noir films do. So I showed that. It was super controversial, and there was one particular student who was super passionate about grilling me in front of the class. I was vilified in front of the class, and after that vilification, I went to my teacher at the Cal Arts program, and actually I didn't go to him. He brought me in. He was like, "Can I talk to you after class?" And I did. And he said to me, listen, Justin, what do you want to say with your films? What is your goal? What is the message you're trying to say? And as a 16-year-old, I had no fucking clue. I was like, the fuck? What do you mean? Am I trying to say something? What am I trying to say? It's something about mental health or, some issue. And my answer to him was, I just want to make a good movie. I just want to make something entertaining for myself. And he and 2 other teachers were like, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. You need to know what you're going to do. And so
so they're telling a 16-year-old
mm-hmm.
that cinema is not valid if it's made for entertainment purposes.
That's what it sounded like to me at the time.
Like they were literally like, no, you must be social justice oriented.
I think what they were really saying.
By the way, I mean, I don't know if you know, I'm a huge proponent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably an SJW as people like to call them.
Yeah.
But I still appreciate everything like as art,
Of course, yeah.
Not all art has to have a point. It's nice when it does.
Mm-hmm.
And I could argue with a lot of people about some of Tarantino's like value.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
But to tell a 16-year-old
mm-hmm.
you shouldn't go into cinema if your goal is to entertain.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was bullshit.
I mean, your freaking heroes are Spielberg and Lucas and Kubrick and Tarantino.
Mm-hmm.
And, entertainment was first. And then, by the way, I could go on and on about George Lucas. Actually,
mm-hmm.
I think Star Wars was originally written just as an analogy to nuclear war. Like the Death Star was nuclear annihilation of a planet.
Mm-hmm.
And he just made a great analogy to the threat that we all lived under back then, that someday every human being could get killed right now.
Right, yeah.
Like we were really worried about it in the 70s, 60s too. So like I thought it was a great analogy, but his number one thing was to entertain.
Absolutely. And I was really surprised by what they said to me. Looking back, I think what they were really trying to say to me was, it could be entertainment, but you have to have something more. And, that's subjective, in my opinion.
Heck, I might have said to you, have you seen that shot in a movie before? And you would have said, yeah. And I said, so why don't you do something new?
I think they might have said that to me. I don't remember specifically, but at the time I was really like, oh my God, what the fuck is going on? Like, I can't make this because of this stupid agenda. And I went back to my dorm and I told my 2 roommates what had happened. And later on we had another project we were doing after that. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try and do better. And I came up with a comedy film that I don't really like. It was a comedy film about, because I saw people were one of my friends that was trying to use hypnotism. He was like experimenting with hypnotism, and I thought that was funny. So I made a movie about that, about someone who gets hypnotized, and then I showed that to my class, and weirdly enough, the teachers thought that was a better movie than the noir one. There wasn't anything in it that I didn't think there was anything in the noir movie that was offensive or anything. But there was even less of that in this comedy film that I made. So they praised the comedy film, and I thought the comedy film was fine. I mean, I was still learning. I didn't know. I'd never made a comedy before.
So they praised it for the filmmaking, or was there some analogy, some meaning to it that they praised?
They praised that it wasn't the movie before.
Oh, that was all. So they were trying to.
Yeah.
Shoot, I'm just gonna put thoughts in their head. Excuse me, and think they were like, "Oh man, we were a little too hard on him last time. Let's make up for it."
I don't know. I don't even know if it was that. I think to me, it came off as, so finally you made something that didn't offend people. Congratulations. And so that whole experience at CalArts was a great experience. I made a lot of great friends there, and I still have friends from that program. But that was the first time I ever really experienced controversy with any of my work. And that was a really important experience to me now, like later on, looking back.
And were you aware that, there was always controversy around a bunch of your heroes?
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, to me, it's not a Tarantino movie if there's not some controversy. Every single movie that he's made has been controversial. Every single one. So I almost wanted that. I almost wanted to make something that was challenging. because controversy, I don't think it can be a bad thing. It can be a good thing. So I just want to start a conversation. And that's what I think Tarantino does. He starts a conversation. And, but yeah, Kubrick was also the same way. He had controversial movies. Lucas, the prequel. Scorsese, oh my God, certainly.
Yeah.
Last Temptation of Christ was like voted most controversial movie ever, I think, at the time.
Paul Schrader never shied away from it.
No, not at all.
Yeah. No, it's a lot of great. And I mean, I think Greta Gerwig doesn't shy from controversy.
No, I don't think so
you
either.
know? Nor does, I can't name the woman who directed Saltburn, but...
Emerald Fennell.
Yeah. And talk about embracing controversial moments and scenes. I mean, so yeah, there's the idea that controversy is no one should ever say controversy is a negative.
No, I mean, I think the discussion is what's important. You know, the discussion about whatever issue it's talking about is important. And I think that's a great movie when it can do that, which, funny enough, I think is more aligned with what my teachers at CalArts were saying. They were trying to, push that you need to have a message, but I think really what they meant was the right answer, which is what I think they should have said was you want to be able to start a conversation about something. So, but yeah.
And that was between 11th and 12th grade?
That was between 10th and 11th grade.
10th and 11th. Wow. But damn early.
Yeah, I was 16 years old. But the next year, the summer after I went to CalArts, I went to NYU, Tisch, for a summer program. And that was a very different program from CalArts. It wasn't as much of a, because at CalArts, they were very, like an artistic kind of space. NYU is a little more conservative and more about the craft of making a film and the technical, which I think was great for me at the time. So I went there, and I still have friends that I met from there. One of my best friends I met there, and he's a filmmaker also. He's a writer director, and he was actually at the screening for Reseda, and he's trying to make his first feature film right now, and so am I. I actually produced his film. His name is Cole Swanson, and I produced his short film during the pandemic, and that was a great experience. Like, he's one of my best friends and collaborators.
Very cool that in high school you were aware of these summer programs and really expanded things. All right, so then with those two summer programs, clearly film school was going to be you were going to be a film major undergrad. You weren't going to wait for a master's.
No, I was going to go to film school. I really was, like I said at the beginning, I was really trying to get into USC, and I thought that there was a moment where I was like, oh, I could go to NYU. Because of that program, and at the time they said almost everybody who did that summer program would get in, and I thought about it, and I really was like, well, I really want to go to USC. I think that's where I want to be, and I like LA. I don't really want to live in New York. I love visiting New York, by the way, fantastic city, but I like living in LA. I'm an LA guy, and I wanted to go to SC. And so I had these two programs. And by the way, these two programs gave me college credit while I was in high school. And so that was on my resume, and I put that on my application to Chapman and USC. And I didn't get into USC. And I was really disappointed at the time. Then I appealed it, and I still didn't get in. And I didn't get into Chapman either. So... And I didn't end up going to at NYU, even though I think I could have gotten in. But I didn't end up going because I wanted to stay in LA, and I liked the network in LA. The network was important, and I didn't know this because this was before the pandemic. But when the pandemic happened, we were all online anyway. So, but I didn't. It was really disappointing not to get into USC. But my dad told me something. Both my parents actually said this to me. They said to me, wherever you go, you're going to make that your USC. You're going to make that your USC. You're going to do whatever you would have done at USC at whatever school you go to. And so I only really got into 3 schools Because in high school, I feel like I was a good student. I never got a C in any of my classes. I only got A's and B's. But I don't think it was enough to get into like a school like USC. I think that was the problem.
They've gotten to the point where, it's someone would have to listen to someone else's podcast. I could name that guy, Scott Galloway. Everyone hearing this should listen to what he says about higher education in America, because in the USA, higher education has tried to become a luxury brand, and they intentionally let in too few students to go higher in the rankings.
Right.
And so they've gotten to the point that they're not about education, they're about status.
The brand, yeah.
And it's a real bummer, because every one of these schools has the kind of endowment that they could accept 10 times as many freshmen, including 10 times as many impoverished kids, and really just lift a generation.
Right.
And instead, they let in 1,200 kids to Harvard because they want 1 out of 700 applicants to get in, so they can show U.S. News and World. Anyway, so you said you got into 3.
I got into 3 schools. And they're all Cal States. I got into Cal State Long Beach, Cal State Fullerton, and Cal State Northridge, and ended up committing to Cal State Northridge.
And that was because it was just closer and easier, or you liked the program best?
It was actually both. The program I did my research, and it was actually a very good program for Cal State. It was even in like the top 25 film schools in the country. So,
I think did I say it at your?
I think you did.
I might have said it during the Q&A or just to you when you told me. But I've met a lot of really great filmmakers out of CSUN.
Yeah, and it's a good school. I went to Cal State Northridge, but the summer before I went to Cal State Northridge, so my summer going from high school to college, it was really important to me that because I didn't get into USC, that I would get an industry job. I would do something in an industry to get an internship. I actually remember being in high school, like my last semester of high school, and I was looking for internships as a high schooler. And usually these internships are for people already in college and people who are maybe even out of college.
But like PA type stuff, or at a post house kind of internship?
No. I was looking for like a production company, like Warner Brothers. Like I was
right.
I applied to Warner Brothers as an intern as a high schooler, like when I was like 17, or actually no, I think I was 18, because I think that was like the minimum you could be. But I was trying, and I did end up getting 2 internships that were not paid, of course, during that summer. One of them was in Beverly Hills at a company called Emmett Furla Films. The 2 guys who ran it, I don't know if they still run it. Randall Emmett is a pretty famous producer. He produced The Irishman. He was one of the producers on that. That was the same year that The Irishman came out. He also think he produced Silence by Scorsese, but he does a lot of low budget action flicks, and he'll usually with like Bruce Willis, or I think Robert De Niro's been in a couple of his too. So I did an internship with them, and that was the first industry job, quote unquote job, because I wasn't getting paid, that I ever had, and that was very interesting. I saw how hard they worked me. They worked me very hard, and I was reading scripts all day and doing personal errands, and I also didn't drive at the time. And I didn't tell them that I didn't drive, but they found out. I didn't get fired, thankfully, but I just Ubered everywhere.
Right, so you just Ubered your brains out.
Yeah, my parents, I feel so bad that they...
My understanding is, I mean, whatever. I'm aware that, like, the younger generation, people are not as enthusiastic about driving as they used to be. It used to be the day, my generation, day you turned 16, you got your license, or you just needed it.
Yeah.
But there was no Uber, and public transit was worse back then, and now you can kind of get away without it.
Yeah, you can. I got away without it for a while, and eventually I got my license, and I'm very happy I did. It took a while to get my license, just to tell you. It took me like 4 times to get my license.
Yeah. So you had this great internship, which was a good introduction to
to the industry,
and to show that you're willing to do the crap jobs, right? Because that's how they treat everybody. They always bring a young person and they're like, all right, let's see how much you really want this.
Right. And then there was another internship I did, which was totally remote. That was for a producer named John Fogel. And all I did was script coverage. I didn't do anything more than that.
So, by the way, I'm derelict to not say, so I will say that reading scripts is the best way to learn how to write better.
Oh, totally. I read a lot of crap.
So you sat down, and that was an excellent. That summer was an amazing class on screenwriting.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and also it was really refreshing to me as like an 18-year-old, as a very fresh adult, to see what is a script in Hollywood that gets submitted to a company. What does that look like, and how well does it read? So I saw that was a big thing, and then that influenced how I would write my scripts later on, or just because sometimes I would see these scripts and I would see these huge passages of action, and it was so it's overwhelming as a reader to read that. So now in all my screenplays, I try to spread it out more and make it easy for a person to read. Like if you saw the page, it's like, oh, okay, thank God, this looks actually easy to read. Thank fucking God. Because there were so many times when I was at those 2 internships where I looked at a page and I'm like, God damn it, I have to read this whole shit.
Yeah, and when you're doing an internship like that, you can't just say, I stopped on page 20 because this was a piece of crap. Like, you've got to finish it.
Right. I had to finish it.
Which is a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
Dang.
So, but it was
and you knew you were gonna be in Northridge at the end of that summer.
I did, yeah.
So you did these internships pre-college, but you knew where you were going.
That's right. Yeah. One of them, the remote one, I actually was still doing during college, because John Fogel's internship was he would just send me a script maybe once every 2 weeks, so it was pretty light work. But
right.
I would still read the entire thing and then give him the coverage. So I still did that during college. I did that for a while, actually. But I never met him, which was weird. I never met him.
Well, I can remember being young, too. When you're young, you can read. You can, like people, if someone asked me to read a screenplay today, I'm like, how long is it? Because forget it. Like, I just can't. I can't. But when I was young, I could read a whole 120-page script overnight.
Wow.
And write a bunch of notes and give someone help how to rewrite it the next day. Like, I could do an all-nighter. Like, now, someone handed me a screenplay. I'm like, no, bring it to me when it's a film.
Yeah, it's hard. I think it's hard to get people to read a screenplay just because it's not a book. I mean, it's not like a piece of. I
used to love it, but that was when I was young. Like you get over it. There's a time limit. Trust me.
Whenever I have a new script, a new feature script, I want my friends to read it. I bring them over to my house, and I have them read it in front of me, and so I can hear the laughs and everything. But I think just turning it into a kind of like ritual made it easier to read.
And do you print it out, or do you have them read it
out? Yeah,
that's a big difference.
Got to have a hard copy.
I've told people, if you want me to read it,
give me a hard copy.
You got to print it out.
I agree.
Because if it's on the computer screen, it's competing with email,
right, and
everything else.
Yeah.
And forget it. In fact, for festival submissions, I watch everything on the TV because computer is way too distracting.
I agree. I prefer people to watch my films on the biggest screen that they can.
Oh yeah. And with hopefully, I don't mind a film that the first before the film begins says, "Put down your phone, please." I've seen that a couple times.
Good for them, honestly.
Yeah, why not, right?
Why not? Yeah. So went to Cal State Northridge, and I did my first semester, and then there was a quarter into my second semester, pandemic hits, and we're all at home. Where it's like, what the fuck is going on? And my friend,
right? So you started fall of 2019,
yes,
and then your second semester of college,
yeah. So
the world stops.
That's right. Yeah.
Damn.
it was oh man, it was a tough pill to swallow for me. It was like just, I was so excited to go to film school too. So excited. That happened. But here's the cool thing too. My friend Cole Swanson, who I went to NYU with, came to me right before the pandemic hit with a script for a short film. And he asked me if I wanted to produce it. And I'd never produced really anything. I was just writing and directing, and I was still like, dabbling in editing and cinematography, but I was really set on being a writer-director. And he asked me to produce this film, and then the pandemic hits, and I needed something to do. I needed something to do badly. And I thought, what thing to do than to produce a film or to make a film. And that's what we did. We made his film during the pandemic, and that was very difficult. This is a super difficult thing to do. But we raised the money. We raised the money on Indiegogo, and we shot the film for 4 days. And it was really good. And then it ended up going to festivals, and it got nominated by HBO. The name of the short is called Baby, which is about a young black father who his girlfriend mysteriously leaves one day and leaves him and their child, and he's just trying to navigate fatherhood. And it's a great little short, and it really set my friend Cole up. He's done great since that film, and it got nominated by HBO, and it went to Rhode Island Film Festival, went to Harlem Film Festival, Martha's Vineyard. So that did great, and that was a good credit for me as a producer, as a filmmaker, and that was the first producing credit I ever had. The budget for that was about $20,000, so I was 19 years old raising $20,000 for a short film during the pandemic.
Did that almost help because like the world had stopped for a while and people were like,
I think so.
I can't go to the movies. I can't do this. I can't do that. Heck, I'll send them $500 or something.
That's what I think that definitely was a factor of it. I mean, we thought this is gonna be fucking impossible to do. But I was very like, well, I don't give a shit. We're gonna keep going. We're gonna do it. And I think I was genuinely very surprised by how many people wanted to support us even during a pandemic, no less. Yeah.
Well, there was a lot of, I'm going to say something, whatever. Mm-hmm. Everyone was walking around at the beginning of COVID saying, like, your age was the age that didn't have to worry too much. Right. Everyone was worried about the elderly and the super young and those with comorbidities or problems. Mm-hmm. But everyone was like, most of us were like, well, the 19-year-olds can take it. Yeah. if they get sick, they'll bounce back. You know what I mean? Like so I could see people being like, yeah, go do this. Go stay busy. You're a college freshman, for Pete's sake.
Yeah, also you have to realize too, this was before the vaccine. This is fresh out during beginning of the pandemic. We were trying to make this movie. And we tested everybody on set, and nobody got COVID. We had one little COVID scare.
Was that back when you had to get in car lines to get tested?
Yes. This was in we started filming Baby in September of 2020. This is
there wasn't even the home kits yet.
No,
I remember the freaking ordeal to get tested.
Yeah, it was a pain in the ass. It was. Yeah, you're right. There was no home kits. You had to go to the urgent care to go and get a test. So it was stressful, but we got through it, and the short did great. And so after the short, I'm still in college and I'm online school, and I kind of did the same thing that I did in high school, where there was an assignment at school to make a film, and I did that, and I felt I'm just doing this for a grade. This isn't something I consider part of my filmography, and I'm just kind of learning with some better equipment. But and I got offers to produce some other short films during that time that I turned down. Because after I did Baby, I was like, I really want to be a writer-director. I don't want to be a producer. So I turned down some producing jobs, and I'm glad I did, because I was able to focus a lot more on what I wanted to do. And so I was trying to do the same thing that I did in high school, or try to make a film for myself outside of school. But it took a long time to get there. I didn't really do it until my last year of college, because there was a short I was trying to get made, and it just wasn't time to do that one. It was going to be super expensive, and it wasn't really getting off the ground. And I, at some point, got so frustrated that I was like, well, fuck it. I just need to make something now. And that film was Reseda. That's the movie. So
and you made it outside of school.
I made it outside of school, yeah.
Yeah, because you just wanted to.
I just wanted to.
And you wanted to make a film, or you happened to like come up with that idea and you're like, this is the idea I want to do.
Well,
and it just wouldn't. So the program at CSUN was such that like you couldn't do that for a class. Like the classes had specific parameters.
Yeah, they had
that sort of got in your way a little.
Certainly. I guess, there were parameters. I couldn't do it for school, but I also didn't want to do it for school, because I knew I was going to feel differently about it. I knew I was going to approach it differently than I would something that was for myself.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So for school, with the whole grade thing and knowing you're going to...
Yeah. Because there's
was that a little informed by the Cal Arts thing?
Informed by... What do you mean?
Well, like in Cal Arts, you kind of learn there's some things you can do for yourself, and there's some things that you can present in class.
Oh, yeah, certainly. Yeah.
Because I could see you getting some shit for some of the stuff in Reseda.
Oh, yeah, and I have. But the film I was going to do before Reseda, because to answer your question, was a feature film I wrote before, and I wanted to do that, and I was going to do a short film version of that feature, and it was just too expensive, and I wasn't ready to do it. That film I'm going to do later on, though. I'm saving that for when I've made 2 features already, because it's also a period piece, so I'm saving that one. But I was so frustrated. I tried very hard to get it made, and it didn't work. But I always have feature ideas. I've always wanted, like, since I was like in middle school, I was thinking about feature movie ideas. So I always wanted to make features, and Reseda was a feature idea I had. And after this other short film didn't work out, I was like, okay, I'm just going to make a short for Reseda then. And it was actually one of the best decisions I've ever made in my entire life, was deciding to pivot. And my friend Cole, who did Baby, I talked to him about this, and he was like, yeah, you got to pivot. You got to do this. You got to do this, because this is going to actually set you up to do that thing that you want to do first. So he helped me realize that, and I did Reseda, and it's done great. It's my favorite thing I've ever made so far.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And you, so we were your LA premiere, but not World. So you played some other festivals first and whatnot.
So,
because you said you've taken some shit for it. So I'm wondering, like, you know, what was the festival reaction?
Well, when I say that, I mean, like, I've gotten shit from kind of like, cause I would show it in my class too. So I would hear some, and I would show it to individuals. But I did premiere online at the Los Angeles Liftoff Film Festival, and I also submitted the feature script I don't remember, but I got feedback from those, and some people were saying, "Oh, this is like, why are you doing this type of humor? You know, this isn't really like, oh, like you shouldn't be doing this. This is too cheap or whatever." And I really disagree with them. I actually think it's I don't think it's cheap at all. I think it's funny. I think it's it's coming from the characters, the humor. So I don't really consider it to be cheap, but I've gotten some shit for it. But not a lot, you know. I've gotten some, but most people love this movie. Most people really enjoy it, and I'm very happy that they do. But I really made it for myself. I'm the first audience member that I think about, and I'm glad I did it that way.
Excellent. And that is, I mean, I'm sure such a rote thing to say, but you should just make if you want to succeed, you should make something you want to see.
Yeah.
And
totally.
Maybe it communicates to others and maybe it doesn't. But if you try to please an imaginary audience who you're not, then you've got nothing.
I agree. Yeah. I think most movies that aren't very good are trying to be made for someone else or for an audience.
For sure. And the heroes that everyone loves. I mean, look, I've admitted it in public before. I'm not a Spielberg fan, but I get it. What appeals to him appeals to lots of people.
That's right.
But you can still tell he's making it because that's
himself.
Yeah, he has that sense of wonder. He has that sense of almost a childlike view of the world that's just it works. It works.
And also, there's the director who made the Les Miserables, the musical one from 2012 with Hugh Jackman. He actually says, I make movies for an audience. I don't really make them for me. But I think that movie and I think that's a good movie. I really like it.
I thought people generally hated it.
The Les Miserables one?
Did people like it?
I think it was nominated at the Oscars at the time.
Yeah, that just means it's bad. Sorry, that was an Oscar jab.
Well, I liked that movie, but then he made a movie called Cats, which I know people hated. So I don't know. I mean, I guess it's just whatever works for you, whatever works for that filmmaker. But I think in general,
yeah, but that's a gig. He took 2 gigs where you're taking one of some of the most famous musicals of all time and adapting them.
That's right. That's
so
true.
It certainly couldn't be, unless he's like, I'm the biggest Les Mis fan ever and the biggest Cats fan ever. Then maybe you're making it for yourself. But yeah, if that's your job to adapt something, I should probably look him up because I wonder if I know who it is. But
he also did. I think he directed that movie. It was also nominated called The King's Speech. I think his name is Tom.
The King's Speech person.
I think his name is Tom Hooper. I think that's his name.
Well, either way,
yeah,
it's a good gig.
Yeah, it's definitely a great gig.
I'm sure the paycheck kicked ass to make those films. Doesn't matter how weird Cats turned out. By the way, like people shat on that film. I didn't see it, and I once had tickets to see the show Cats, and I didn't go because it's my level of interest in people wearing tights, pretend to be cats.
Yeah.
But like, what else were they going to do? Not have people in tights looking like cats? Like,
right.
It was an
That's
adaptation.
What it is. Yeah.
Like everyone was critical of how creepy it was. I'm like, well, but that was the show.
Yeah, right.
Like, what, you expected them to do CGI and have them look realistic?
Right. And I also think, as much as people do shit on that movie, it has a lot of fans in a kind of non-ironic, like in an ironic sense. Like they watch it as like, this is so bad it's funny.
Oh, is it the new Showgirls, the So Bad It's Good film?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Which I've had people defend Showgirls. I have not revisited it for 30 years, but or however old it is.
I still think it's cool that the movie has a fan base, even if, I mean, The Room is like the biggest example of like the best worst film ever made, but the fans are so into it. They still show it in Westwood, I think, at midnight. I've never been.
Oh, you haven't seen it?
I haven't seen it in the theater. I've seen it like at home, but
people have told you then you haven't seen it, right? Because it's like Rocky Horror. It's the reason people love it. It's interactive.
Yeah, I know people throw like plastic spoons at
every time you see the spoon on the wall.
But I love that the fans are so passionate about it. I love that they are interacting with the movie in a way that, Marvel fans even interact with the movie. They don't throw spoons, but
but more so even. No, it's, and to his credit, Tommy Wiseau fucking embraced the badness. He took that film seriously for about 5 minutes. Then as soon as everyone started laughing at it, he said, "Yeah, it's funny." Like instead of fighting it, he went with it.
That's
and
true,
it's made him very wealthy. Good for him.
Good for him. Seriously.
But no one's ever made a pivot like that. No one ever will again, right? It was a one-time deal.
I don't know.
The worst film possible made by a complete amateur, and the amateur goes, "Oh,
it's a comedy.
I guess I'm not. I guess I'm not Kubrick. I might as well make the most of it. Good for him."
I respect it. I respect it a lot. Yeah,
it is. It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Heck, I even like the thing Franco did. The Disaster Artist.
Yeah, that was just interesting to see a fictionalized, or not fictionalized, but a dramatized version of the story of how it got made, and it's very funny. Yeah, the
person I feel got the least out of that film was the lead actor, the woman who was the lead actress. She, boy, that film made her look terrible. But anyhow. Mm-hmm. And Tommy got all the money. I bet she didn't have in her contract to get 2% of all receipts. No. Man, that would have, she'd be set for life.
Yeah.
Bummer. When that thing on the side of her throat keeps popping out in that scene. Uh-huh. That tendon. Dear Lord. Anyway. All right, so. Mm-hmm. We got through Reseda. Uh-huh. And you're really happy with it and proud of it.
Very, yeah.
And I think it's cool. And we discussed it at the festival. Mm-hmm. I just, so here's so my argument is that I don't see him as dumb. Mm-hmm. And I can do spoilers, right?
Yeah. It's all good.
The weed's not where he left it. I don't think, are you saying he definitely forgot where he put all the weed, or did someone take it?
I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that because I love whenever people come up to me and are like, this is what I think happened to the weed. Like there was a lot of people after the Sherman Oaks Film Festival that came up to me and were like, "What happened to the weed?" And I was like, "Well, what do you think happened?" And they would tell me a lot of people think that his roommate smoked it, and I think that's a great.
It's valid.
That's a valid.
Smoked it or took it and smoked some and gave some away. Who knows? But,
who knows, right?
But I don't think it necessarily makes you stupid that someone rips you off.
No, I don't think so. I think he's more of a victim of circumstance in that.
Like
case.
You say, yeah, he's your Larry David. Mm-hmm. But I really do love his performance.
I
really do. I really do love the vibe of like that expression on his face. Mm-hmm. Well, I gotta admit, I think you see yourself in him.
Do I see myself in Sil? Not really in the...
Because you kind of did the thing where you cast an actor who's reminiscent of you.
Is that true? Do you
Physically,
think so?
Yeah.
Physically? Wow.
Like, you know what I mean?
That's interesting.
Like sometimes...
He's my best friend in college.
He's your best friend. Yeah. Sometimes it feels like a director has a performer...
Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah,
who's like
the director, or like
or like you can see the connection. Like,
well, that's good. I mean, that's great. I never, no one's really told me that before, but I see what you're saying.
I'm sitting here and talking to you, and I'm like, because you're kind of chill, you're kind of a little low key, and he might be an exaggeration of your personality. Right, of like...
I'll tell you this. I don't think that I don't think we have the same personality, but the idea that we're... Like, I've been a victim of circumstance before. I think everybody has, and I just think it's so funny. Especially, living in the Valley is... there's so many crazy people in the Valley. Oh my God, it's filled with crazy people and interesting people. And I think that's really what he's a victim of, and I've been a victim of that. So...
and you certainly show your flair for character throughout the whole film. I mean, the whole film is just filled with memorable characters, and we talked about how you used wardrobe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love. That's one of my things about making a film is I love creating the characters. I love creating interesting people, and they always surprise me. I don't have them like really figured out at all before I write the script. While I'm writing the script, I'm figuring out who they are. Like I didn't know that Sil was, because Sil at one point tells his roommate to shut the fuck up after his roommate is like, well, dude, aren't you a drug dealer? And I didn't know that Sil was gonna lash out at him like that. I had no idea. And then I wrote it down and he did it. And so I think he has a bit of an anger issue, or you know what I'm saying?
But that's the best kind of writing, right? When it just surprises you. When you create the characters and then they just talk to each other in your head on the page. Yeah, that's real writing.
Yeah.
It's not overly manipulative. Mm-hmm. Excellent.
I think it's very. I will say though, in the feature film script for Reseda, there's a lot more with Sil, a lot more, and I think he's more of an idiot there. Like, he doesn't make the best decisions in the feature film. In the short film, it's really like it's just a flavor. It's just a taste of what the feature is. But, because it's a short film, there's not a lot of time to really get in depth to his character. But the short film, the story in the short film is a sequence in the feature film. And it's much longer in the feature, and it plays out a little differently just because, it's a feature. But he's more of an idiot in the feature for sure.
Fair enough. All right, so then my saying that we don't get enough of the doofus character, mm-hmm. the lovable fool, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But I will, whatever. I mean, not to be ageist, but by definition, when we're young, we're ignorant. You know what I mean? I like no matter how smart young people are, believe me, I've talked to I got a niece who's 25 and she's like, we had lunch a couple weeks ago and she's like, I can't believe how dumb I was at 20. I'm like, you realize at 30 you'll say that about 25, and at 35 you say that about 30.
Wow.
I'm like, it actually doesn't end. At 55, I'm like, damn, I wasn't that smart a couple years ago. You know what I mean? Like it never stops.
It never ends.
It actually never ends until, the universe kicks in and your brain starts to go from senility and or whatever. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you stop getting wiser, and you just become childlike again, if you're lucky or unlucky. I don't know.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, people when they're young, I think it's funny whenever a young person, and I've been, guilty of this, thinking that they know everything, which that in itself is probably not very smart.
By definition, though, we all think we know. I mean, she doesn't listen to this, so I can say it. I got a 16-year-old daughter, and she's like, she thinks she knows everything now. She's quite confident that she knows more than us, and it's funny. But love her to death. She's cool. She's cool.
Great.
All right, so should we gloss over that you said you've taken some shit for Reseda, or you want to talk about the stuff that you took shit for?
Oh, yeah, I don't mind talking about the stuff that we...
Up to you, or we can wrap it up and get to your 4 questions.
Let's talk about what I took shit for.
Let's talk about it. Because you seem like the kind of guy who'd want to talk about
No, yeah, definitely.
the shit all right, what'd you take shit for?
So I've taken shit for the jokes, like the joke where...
The blowjob jokes.
Yeah, the blowjob jokes where Sil is looking for this ounce of weed that he lost, and he goes to a customer that he sold to earlier, and he tries to buy the ounce back, and the customer says, "Okay, fine, I'll give it back to you, but I want you to suck my dick." And
you've gotten called homophobic?
Yeah, I mean, a couple people. Not most everybody thinks it's pretty funny, but there's a few people who think it's homophobic.
But it's not. The characters might be, or the characters might be challenging him to overcome his own whatever.
Right.
But it doesn't make you that you have characters.
No, it doesn't. No. What I think about my characters is when I'm writing them, they're writing themselves. Really, I'm not like putting words in their mouth. I feel like I'm just doing what naturally would occur next. So I would say in that specific scene, I don't even think it has to... I think it really has to do with the fact that he wants to humiliate him, and he wants to...
It's a power thing.
It's a power thing. He wants to dominate him, show him, I'm better than you, or I'm gonna, make you feel lesser than me. So I think, but the funny thing is that he's asked to do it instead of just buying it back. And then
it's not in addition to the money.
It's not in addition.
Yeah, it's in replacement.
I like it in replacement. Yeah,
that is funny. And then it happens again.
And then it happens again in the same day later on when Sil goes home.
By the way, if I were to, by the way, I could go either way. I could argue for or against, but I could definitely there are people like that.
Yes, there are.
If someone said to me, no one would ever say, suck my dick and I'll do something I don't really want to do. Like, it's just a regular, it might be a little off-putting to some people, but there are people like that. That is a genuine thing. And it's a genuine, straight dude thing.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, you hear all sorts of stuff that happens in prison all the time.
Different level.
Much different level. But yeah, later on in the film, Sil goes home and the mobsters are waiting for him, and he apologizes profusely, like, I'm so sorry, I'll have it next time. And then they're like, it's okay, it's not a big deal. It's an ounce of weed. Don't worry about it. And he's like, no, I can get it.
Yeah, like an ounce is a couple $100, right?
Yeah.
It's not a lot.
It's not a lot.
I have no idea what it costs now because it's legal, but...
Yeah, but anyway, he says, then the mobster's like, no, it's not a big deal. And Sil's like, okay, well, thank you very much. And then it changes. and he does this whole monologue, and then at the end of the monologue, he very heavily implies that he's not going to leave unless Sil does something for him. And then Sil's like, well, what do you want? And then this mobster just has the biggest smile on his face, and he just starts unzipping his pants. And even that is like it's the same idea, like a power move. It's like trying to make him feel lesser and humiliate him. I don't think that's homophobic to me. To me, that's like a male
well, and it is
challenge.
I mean, and I don't know if you'll bother with it in the future, but like you can add more dimension to it, like in a feature, like in the short. In the short, it's for a laugh, but like you can make it clear that it's not homophobic. Hell, I thought a funny thing would be if Sil was actually gay, and like so his saying no is like, no, I do that for fun when I want to. I'm not going to do it because I'm forced to.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that would already make it like I'm like no one has any proof that Sil doesn't love to suck a dick. He might really like it, but he's not going to do it just to like get out of trouble. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. That's just.
But also, I just don't think I don't think it's the joke in itself is homophobic. I think Sil is the butt of the joke. He's the butt of the joke. It's not. I don't think it's at the expense of anyone else but him. And that's what I love about Curb Your Enthusiasm too. Is like whenever Larry gets himself into some crazy situation, and it even has to do with something kind of a sensitive nature, like a sensitive topic. He did an entire episode after 9/11 called The Terrorist Attack. And in the episode, he hears about a possible terrorist attack on LA, but he's told not to tell anybody. And earlier in the episode, he doesn't say goodbye to somebody, and he wants that person to like not think he's such a bad guy. So he tells her the secret about this terrorist attack, and then the terrorist attack never happens. But everybody's now left LA, and it ruins some event. And so he's the butt of the joke of that. He's not making fun of like a terrorism. He's making fun of himself in that context. And that's what I feel about Sil. I'm making fun of him in that situation, not gay people.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And you know what? Some people won't like it. Some will.
Yeah, that's true.
And
I accept it.
Do it for you. Exactly. You accept it. You own it. Yeah. Excellent. All right. Well, I think it's a good place to stop. Yeah,
I'd say so.
All right. Well, do you want to name? I didn't warn you about this. I was supposed to warn you in the preamble, but I forgot. Do you want to name like a website or social media that people should follow for you?
Yeah, sure. My Instagram is at Justin Aaron Sirkin. So that's at JustinAaronSirkin.
And I will make that a clickable link.
Cool.
And all right, now you know where to find Justin. Now I'm gonna do my closing spiel. Get us out of here. Awesome. So Thank you, anyone still listening to the Discover Indie Film Podcast. I'm Jeff Howard. I program 2 festivals in the LA area. But first, if you want to learn more about this podcast or the TV series on Amazon Prime Video that was born from it, just go to discoverindiefilm.com, or it's at DIFwins on all the social media platforms that I've heard of. I don't know. There's always new ones. And by the way, that TV series is just short films handpicked from the festival circuit, and we throw them up on Amazon. There's 7 seasons up there, and I'll say no more. Hopefully season 8's coming. And we mentioned Sherman Oaks Film Festival. It was where we had the LA premiere of Reseda. Reseda in Sherman Oaks. Works for me. The Valley. So if you want to learn more about that festival, go to ShermanOaksFF.com, or it's at ShermanOaksFF on social media. Sister festival we hold every June is called Film Invasion Los Angeles. You can learn about that if you go to filminvasionla.com, and it's at Film Invasion LA on social media. And the last thing to mention, hey, we talked about weed a bit. We touched just a tiny bit.
Yeah.
We didn't even really talk about. It's funny, you made a stoner film. Well, I guess does anyone actually smoke in it?
No.
See, there's no smoke in your stoner film. I love it. Well, if you can responsibly use cannabis, or if you just love high quality indie cinema, check out a smart TV app called TVHi. Go to Roku, Amazon Prime, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, Android TV, Android Mobile, iPhone. All those app stores have an app called TVHi, TVHi, or you can go to watchtvhi.com. And that is a streaming service devoted to stuff that's great. You don't have to be high to enjoy it, but if you're high, it'll be even better. Kind of like 2001, one of the all-time greats. I mean, right. There are some people that think you got to be high to watch that film. I actually have never seen that film high.
Me either.
I've seen it more times than I can count. Mm-hmm. But maybe I should add one high one finally. I have not thought to do that. Yeah. I don't even know if my wife has seen that film. But anyway, Justin, thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
And thank you, everyone, for listening.